Welcome to the Blueprints podcast. I'm Isabelle Braeutigam here with Michael Flory on our first ever episode today.
I'm so excited. This is absolutely a dream come true.
Yeah. And when you say it's a dream come true, I mean, we've talked about this for several years now.
Yep. And I've thought of this before you were even born.
Really? You thought about the podcast before I was born?
I mean, back in 2000, 2001, 2002, when I really had a vision to share my story is something I thought about back in those days. We didn't have this medium to share a story worldwide.
Yeah.
But we're doing it. And we're stepping out today and doing this together. I'm really excited to be here with you.
For those of you who don't know, Michael is actually my dad. So I'm the oldest of 8 kids in the Flory family. And it's really awesome because we get to do not only life together, but business together.
Yeah, this is for me to be working with you and to be working with my other children in our business is something that I couldn't ever think or imagine, 20 years ago that I would be doing this.
Yeah. And I didn't ever think or imagine that I would be doing this either.
Yeah.
It's kind of something that unfolded. And so I've been in the business now for probably about 5 years full time. And we've just had the joy of working alongside, learned lots of things. You guys will hear me call him Michael throughout this podcast. And that's kind of an intentional shift we made in our relationship where we've got our personal side where he's dad at home and then, our professional side where...
Well, you made that shift.
This is true.
As Isabelle began to, take her role in the company, we promoted her about 2 years ago to be our marketing manager. And remember, we showed up at a meeting and she introduced me as Michael. And I would sometimes slip up and say, "This is my daughter, Isabelle." And I would get this look from her, man. And if you've been in person with Isabelle, you get this look. It's like, no, I'm Isabelle and you're Michael. So anyway, She established that early on.
Yeah. And that's really an intentional shift so we can have an awesome work relationship, right? And be, we work super hard, both of us do. And
you've led super well in that. It's been super healthy.
Yeah.
How we've been able to build what we have today.
Yeah. So, Blueprints, why we named it that. We have a construction company, custom built design and remodeling, local here in the Lansing, Michigan area. And we serve homeowners looking to transform the place they live into a home they love.
Yeah. And it all starts with an idea, right? Homeowners, we own these houses, we buy them. You know how many people buy a house and they go into it and they're like, we love it, but we want to do this or we want to do that. Or they've been in it for 20 years and they're like, we need to update that.
Yeah.
And then along comes the idea. And then what do you do with that?
Right. And that's where we come in is we really help homeowners create that plan so they can implement their vision, right? The blueprints. So this Blueprints podcast is all about life transformation, really. And your story is a transformational one. It's also a tragic one. And where you're at today, a lot of people can't believe that you are even able to be here today. So can you share your story?
Yeah. I lost both of my parents at a really young age. I was born and raised here in Lansing, Michigan. And in 1986, I was 10 years old. Both my parents were killed in a shooting by my grandfather. Along with that, 2 of my siblings, myself and my grandmother, were also part of that shooting that happened in our house. And he later tried to kill himself. So we had a mass murder case back in 1986, and I lived through that.
Wow.
By the time I was 15, I was battling mental health and struggling to grapple with all of the anger and the pain and the bitterness towards my grandfather who took my parents' lives, and then just no path or blueprint, even grief back in those days. There really wasn't a lot of paths to show you how do you start untangling some of this mess that you're walking through. And so by the time I was 15, I ended up being diagnosed as bipolar and got on medications, and none of it fixed anything that was going on inside of me. And a lot of suicidal ideation over those years, really, really dark times, going in and out of these major depressive episodes and massive manic episodes. And this led to 20 years old. When I was 20 years old, life just wasn't worth living anymore. And I attempted suicide. And a few months later, I attempted suicide again and was going to attempt suicide again. And that night, my life was changed forever. I had an encounter with God. I'll just say a divine encounter that was life transformational. It was like you're going one direction on the road, and all of a sudden, and it's dark and it's gloomy and it's blackout and it's scary, and somehow the car just was turned around, and I was driving into the mountain sunset, and everything was bright and new and hopeful. That night, I had this encounter, and it was so pivotally transformational. And during that night, or during that encounter, I'll call it, I heard the voice that I'm what you're looking for. And what that meant to me was that there was actual hope. And medicine and counseling and all of that stuff, I had a real negative view of that. We'll get into that in the but I've kind of come around, I've come around back to more of a middle place, because from 15 to 20, the help that I was getting wasn't helping me. It actually, in my opinion, it was making me worse. The medications didn't help. They put me on new medications that would cause me to have these crazy episodes. But that night, man, that experience going from deep, deep pain, brokenness, bitterness to peace. I mean, I'm talking like peace, like a river, man. Like I'm talking like sunset. People will, when you go to the beach every night to see the sunset. Why? Because the emotion that it gives them, And I had this, and it was a dark, gloomy night in the middle of February in Lansing, Michigan, cold, and I had this encounter, and it changed everything for me. And you fast forward a few years later, then I had a kind of a vision that I wanted to share my story and help people who were in dark, dark places. And that was really the beginning of my journey.
Yeah. So obviously I've heard your story many times over the years, but I mean, to go from losing your parents at 10 years old to, 15, your middle of teenage years, there's already a lot going on for every teenager. But then to have all that grief and pain attached, and then 20, it's like you're getting into adulthood and you have this transformation, and that led you to a journey of like basically a year of transformation, right? To a complete 180.
Yeah, it was about a year and a half, and I was off all the medications that I was on, and I was living a joy-filled life with a passion and a mission to change the world, honestly.
And it all came from that one night where it was just a moment where you felt that peace.
Just a moment.
Yeah, just everything can change in a moment. You always will tell me that. You're like, in a moment, anything can change because you had that in your life.
Absolutely.
So then what happened next?
Well, I met Cassie, my wife, your mom.
Mm-hmm.
And fast forward now, I have 8 children.
That's crazy.
There's a whole big story that we're not going to be able to get into in this podcast, but in future podcasts, we'll definitely hit it. But Mom and I had a very similar hearts. She's from out west, and I got to visit the mountains with her, and that just began to formulate a passion. And both her and I wanted to give our lives to helping underserved communities and countries, whatever it might be. And she was going to be a doctor, so she was going to school here at Michigan State.
Mm-hmm.
And we got married, second year of med school. All is well until one day she came home and she told me I'm pregnant. And that was not in the cards. I'm 24 years old and I'm making $10 an hour. I'm going to a small little Bible college and trying to figure out what I'm going to do with life, because up to this point, I have no formal education. I mean, they let me through high school. They pushed me out the door. I got a diploma, but I didn't have any formal education. And all the education I was doing at this point was I was reading books. I was devouring books. I was interested in entrepreneurial stuff a little bit. I had gotten introduced to that a little bit and started reading books and self-help books and really diving into, man, what is this? What is this God thing? How does all this work? And just really, really excited. And I'll tell you, one of the big transformations, and we'll get into this later too, but one of the big pivotal moments was shortly thereafter that night. There was a moment in in my journey where it was like a flash flood of my entire life going before me up to this point. I'm 20 years old, and I saw like my grandfather's life. And for the first time, I thought, how broken was he to do what he did? And I looked at my life and I thought, wow, all the things that I had messed up and done wrong, and the pain and the hurt and the people I had hurt along the way. It was just a moment where I let go of what I wanted him to repay. Because I thought that's what was all those years, man, all those years, I was wanting him to pay me back for what he had done to destroy my life. And at that moment, a new blueprint was introduced to me. And that blueprint was the blueprint for freedom, for creation, for restoration. And ultimately, I didn't know it at the time, but was the beginning of a building business. I thought I was going to be speaking on stages and sharing my story, but I'm raising a family and building a business. And that was the game-changing moment.
Wow. So 8 months into marriage, you get pregnant. It's me.
There you are. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that moment. No.
No, you don't.
No. So you guys are pregnant and you get to decide what's next, because the whole plan you had in front of you is now not going to work unless it's just not going to work, because mom at that point was like, I want to stay home and have kids, raise them, all of that. And so that
I don't know what she was thinking. I'm not making any money. The plan was for her to make the money, and I was going to be the guy that got to do all this other stuff. But yeah, she's whole new introduction into our blueprint at that point was thrown into the plans, and they were screwed up.
Yeah. We
have that happen a lot in construction. Like, you get a call from the guys in the field. The plans don't work. The measurements aren't right. Like when
we open this wall up and there's this issue. Where is this wire at?
Yeah. So that was one of those moments for us. It was like, this isn't in the plans. I remember just like, I can remember again, and it's amazing what the mind can do. I can remember being that night, like, I don't know what to do. I was mad, actually. I was angry. I was like, this isn't supposed to be like this. It's like God had this plan and this wasn't in the cards. But I surrendered.
That's a big thing we'll continue to dive into. And I think that's a theme in life, is the idea of just surrendering.
Yeah.
It's just let it. It is what it is, right?
Right.
So.
And you move forward. You let go, but you move forward. It's not like you let go and you're just like, don't worry about it. Like, in order to get through and make these jumps, like even for me, I mean, like I had this crazy encounter, but I have done a lot of deep work, hard work, challenging work, and some of it's just taking the next step. Right.
Yeah.
So, and then it's harder, easier, and you just keep going.
Yeah. You guys are pregnant. You kind of let go of the plans that you had.
Yep.
And then what was the next step?
Well, we decided to have 7 more kids.
That night you decided, you said this is what this is going to look like.
Yeah, I know. I
No.
Honestly, your mom is an amazing person. And, along the way, I've always had big, crazy ideas and just would get fixated on certain things. And, but one of them was both of us had a heart to have a family. And so we did really start pouring ourselves into having a family. Simultaneously, I'm pouring myself into, how do I run a business? How do I support my family? I got no education, no entrepreneurial background, no construction background, a lot of brokenness, a lot of pain. And I am full force into, let's do this thing. Let's do this thing. We're going to change the world, and that's really where it started. And so a lot started happening really fast, having kids and starting getting the business going. And there's a lot of shifts that happen in the business. I mean, along the way there was a lot of iterations. We had the Great Recession that lasted many, many years. made the building industry really, really tough. I mean, our houses went from what they were to half the value. People didn't have any money in their houses. I mean, foreclosures all over the place. That's how we ended up in this amazing home. It was a foreclosure that we picked up in 2011. So, it was just a lot of stuff that wasn't in the cards, and that was the beginning of that.
Yeah, and I think about one of the big things in your story that we always talk about is just the idea of you've always had this huge vision since the moment you had that encounter. Like, you've had this big vision to impact a lot of people. And it's taken a while to get to where you're at today, right? And
yeah, it started real slow and it kept going real slow. And one of the greatest books is you gotta write this down if you got a pad of paper, but or order it. It's called The Gap Gain by Dan Sullivan.
Yeah.
And Benjamin Hardy. Great book. And so I was always frustrated that I wasn't where I wanted to be. And it seemed so far away. So I focused on what he calls the gap. I would spend most of my time measuring myself and saying, I must not be good enough. I don't measure up. My business isn't taking off. There's no profitability at the end of the year. I'm overdrawn as a business. How are we going to make payroll? All of these moments where I have all these big dreams, and yet here I am 15 years into business, and we're barely scratching the surface of not even 1% of where I wanted to be.
Yeah. So, and the gap gain is the idea of you're measuring yourself against where you want to be. So your big vision of being, family of companies nationwide, you're measuring yourself against that gap instead of looking and saying, wow, look where I've come from.
Look what I accomplished today.
Yes.
Look how far we've made it, in 15 years. So we survived the great recession here in Michigan, and we're still in business, right? We still have an opportunity to continue to grow. So just along the way, starting to learn some of those things that would help me have a better mindset towards staying in the now as I have my big picture plans. Every now and then you kind of resurface and you get up there and you look, okay, the horizon. Okay, I see the goal. I see the plan. Now let's create a 90-day plan. And so that we started doing that. And that kind of ties back into the blueprint.
And that's such a big shift in your mindset over the years.
Yes. And sometimes in life we build up structures, and that structure works for a while, but later in life, the structure has to get pulled down and redone. So you have to go back into the design mode. Everything that worked for me when I was in my 20s didn't work for me the same when I was in my 30s.
Right.
It didn't work for me when I was in my 40s. I had to redesign. So the idea of, like, for us, life remodeling, redoing, and then redeveloping is what I'm really excited about.
Yeah, and it's so fun to be able to do it with you too. But I mean, as we wrap this up here, I think one of the things we want to leave you all with is we're going to be talking about a lot of tools that can help you in your life, help you get more freedom where you're at. We're specifically talking to entrepreneurs as well, because that's who you are. You're an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
And you used this word the other day, and I thought it was hilarious. You said entrepreneurial seizure.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, that came back. Actually, I have to give that to Michael Gerber from the E-Myth book. So if you haven't read that, that's a great book. But it's just, I think oftentimes people, they jump, right? They're working at a business and they jump into business because they think, well, I'm not getting paid enough. I can do this on my own. And they find out 2-3 years in that it ain't that easy and that they're working 100 hours, 110 hours a week, and they're making $5 an hour because they get to the end of the year and they pay their taxes and they just realize there's not any money left over. But they have this vision of owning their own business. So oftentimes I think entrepreneurs jump in before they know how they're going to get there. And there may be other people that have blueprints and they kind of look at them like, oh, I could do that. They look at a franchise model. They look at this model. But the reality is when you jump in and you get your business going, there's a lot of moving parts. And remodeling's the same way. I mean, we have plans and blueprints for houses, but when we open them up, it's game on. There's a lot of discovery. There's a lot of creativity that has to happen, a lot of shifting and that goes on.
Yeah. So we have so many more exciting topics to dive into, but really today we wanted to give an overview of, Michael, your story. And so this podcast is really meant for those who are looking for deeper freedom in their life. those who are passionate about personal development and bettering themselves, entrepreneurs who have that seizure inside of them, right? And they're looking for tools.
We're going to there's going to be so many ideas that are going to come out of this podcast.
Yeah.
I think also we're going to bring fun and joy into people's lives in a way, honestly. Like if there's one thing that's going to happen, like you and I, like we have some funny stories.
We
just on a day-to-day basis. I mean, it's just wild.
I've always said if we could record what our office looks like, we could have an office show like The Office.
Oh, like The Office.
Yeah, we're looking forward to creating joy, expanding minds, and working together on this podcast.